Hello and welcome to Animediate, episode 9. We're closing up on the final episodes now, and here we're at the almost cream of the crop with one of my favourite shows, No Game, No Life. It's a show that I've rewatched quite a bit, and the general premise of No Game, No Life is that, well, I guess it's like about how how gamers are oppressed in the real world, right?
Of course.
Famously.
Yeah, so gamers famously they don't have, they can't take their rightful position at the top of society like they should be able to. So this is a show where two gamers who are like the best gamers there are get transported to this alternate reality where everything is based on games. So if you wanna do anything, you have to be a pro gamer, and they're really epic and sick, and it's a very pretty show, very stylized, show that will never get a second season. So don't get invested too much in it because it does just kind of stop. I will put that out there as a warning.
Does it have a really sudden ending, or is
it's just like, I will see you next time, and that was 6 years ago.
It's a bit of a Firefly situation.
Yeah, which is a shame, but there's a lot of very high energy moments in No Game, No Life. It's eminently rewatchable, and I hope we'll all have a good time with it. Right.
Hello, welcome to No Game, No Life.
What just happened?
It wasn't even funny. I don't know why.
Alright, let's do a podcast.
Alright. Let's keep the ball rolling, keep the momentum going. So that was the first episode where the basic premise of the show is introduced. The main two, Sora and Shiro, go to their other world, and they learn that if they fucking can use their pro gamer skills to do pro gamer moves in this world. It's cool. What do you all think?
I think it kind of reminds me of Living with Ethan and Chris, the 4v1,000, talking about hacking, them just being so good at games that they can just play kind of constantly. I mean, I basically live with some pro games, so...
So why is it that we only have about 20 Warzone wins max compared to other people?
But you got to go to this. Where do you think Chris is now? You went to that world. His world was a box, so he's gone to his magical world where everything's a game.
Has he taken his younger sister with him as well?
He has a very kind of creepy relationship with. She's introduced on a deacon shot while her age just 11 appears. That's the moment I was like, okay. We're in for one of Tony's animes here.
I will be honest, I'm completely desensitized now to those kinds of shows.
That's good.
So I don't even notice them unless someone actually picks up on them and says something.
I've worn people down. Yeah, I do think that it is very funny for us to complete the horseshoe saga of Animediate, the horseshoe theory that is. We started with Eramaga Sensei, the very awkward brother-sister relationship, and everyone hated it. And I was like, that show's bad. But not because of the brother-sister relationship. No, that's part's good. In No Game, No Life.
Yeah, it's a similar
I don't like it. It's a very horny show.
Yeah, it is. It's definitely horny on main. It's definitely horny post it. But you know what?
It would be inherently bad, to be very horny, but very horny with an 11-year-old is you've got to draw some lines.
I
draw the line well before that point.
There were lines drawn.
Situation. They're related as well. So it's like a Jamie Cersei, but also they're like children. It's like double fucked up.
Yeah. Scoring all the points left and right.
Yeah, when you described the premise before the intro, I didn't say anything, but I was like, well, this is not the most original idea I've heard of, gamers get trapped in a video game. We've seen that quite a lot.
It's not a video game though, Harry. It's a world that has video game rules.
That's true. It has a tiny different spin to it. But yeah, I feel like I've watched the show already. You're in another world on my smartphone. Meet Sword Art Online with the relationship dynamic of Eromanga Sensei.
It's combining them all. It's the best of hits of Animediate, fusing them together.
In fairness, I am just thinking that there is kind of similar vibes for the second half of the actual Sword Art Online. I think they're like a sister or like half sister or stepsister or whatever of the main character has a massive crush on the main character.
It's kind of a weird recurring thing.
Yeah,
I wonder if that says anything. Probably not.
Just how kind of normalized that is.
You delve into the sexual pathology of an entire nation.
Let's psychoanalyze some people. Alright. But more important than the casual incest is how cool the action scenes look in this show. So it starts with like a sick 4v100,000 fight, where it's like impossible. That move can't be dodged. And then guess what? Guess what Sora does? You won't guess. He dodges it. and everyone loses their shit. It's so cool. And it sort of picks up again with another action scene, which is like them being both dropped into this strange looking alien fantasy planet that has so much like chromatic aberration and like this weird Instagram like Technicolor bloom filter on everything that just assaults your brain, but it looks epic at the same time.
Yeah, my eyes couldn't really handle it. I was kind of squinting through the entire thing because I'm kind of like
everything's so luminous. I love it.
Just need to. There we go.
Oh, I actually love how No Game No Life works. It's such a like it feels like abstract art, but it doesn't look ugly. It's just so much color and vividness and motion, and I don't think you get it as much with the English dub, which is a shame. But there are some really great moments of sound design that pick up at very subtle moments, where like the main character, he'll lean in, say something like very like deep and like gravelly, be like, haha, I've checkmated your pawn. You don't checkmate pawns. I don't know chess. But he'll say something like that. And there'll be this cool like bass tone in the background, and his eyes will like glow red. And it's like you could make anything. You could make Snakes and Ladders sick if you animated it to look like No Game No Life. And that's what they do in this show. It's amazing. I love it so much.
Yeah, I feel I'd have to hold off judgment on the visuals of it and the sort of flow of the action scenes to while I'm not watching like a stream of it where it's less frames per second and like very pixelated. So I can't really judge it on anything like visual at the moment.
I just want to say it's cool that it's just like, I don't know, poker and chess. I'd rather watch an anime of those things than just like another big sword fight. Like the action scene at the start just does nothing for me because I've seen that 100 times. Whereas at least when it's someone playing a game of like poker, that's something I've not really seen in an anime before. Even though the whole like over dramatizing something that's not that dramatic is kind of like a joke that I've probably seen a lot of times. I don't know. I found that slightly more interesting than the start. But maybe it's just because of the way my eyes are. But I did enjoy the first half of the episode more because it didn't fucking hurt my eyes. But maybe I'm just tired.
That's true. You do have to recharge your energy to be able to enjoy No Game No Life. But I'm excited
the problem
to
is
watch
we've
it.
all spent 5 consecutive days just gaming. So we're not.
We're all like
really.
Skrelp. Oh, no. I realise I have no idea if that is going to make sense. But we're all like Skrelp. We've all been gaming for too long. Oh man, I love it. Alright.
Cool foreshadowing.
Was one of them. Alright. We'll call it there then, and we'll see you after we've watched all of No Game No Life. Or we watch a different show I don't know how this format is going to work. Hello and welcome again to whatever part of Animediate episode 9 this ends up being. Going through another show just to trial it out and see if people gel with it better. We're going through Baccano. Now this is an interesting one. I haven't actually finished it, but I liked the first 4 or so episodes of it so much that I was like, you know what, I'm going to save this. I'm going to go through it, watching it the first time with everyone else. And then we had to go away and watch them on our own anyway, so I kind of forgot about that whole thing. But you know what? I'm still hyped to go through and watch it. This is a 1930s Chicago-esque, like, I want to call it like a mystery thriller type show where the whole conceit is that it keeps showing the same events, like swapping from different perspectives, and it has like a very big cast, so you will see the same like thing happen. It will zoom in on a background character and that'll be the main character now, and I'll be like, yo, this is what it looked like to them. It's really cool. I have no idea how the mystery in it unfolds, but I remember it being very jazzy, very cool, and I'm excited to watch it. What are you guys hyped?
Yeah, because I've seen Durarara, which I'm pretty sure is like created by the same people, and that does a very similar thing and does it very well, of having a large host of characters, a sort of mystery that everything is built around, and this sort of way it flows between kind of switching up who is the main character, whose story you're focusing on, and creating this feeling of, in Durarara, like a city. And I imagine it's quite similar when it comes to this. So yeah, I'm hyped for it.
I'm almost annoyed that you showed us No Game No Life, because from the sounds of it, this is like a 30s noir thing with the storytelling device of Rashomon, but it's an anime. I'm like, this sounds so much better than what if video games were real.
When Tony started talking about this and he said it was 1930s, blah blah blah, I thought what he was trying to say was that this was the first anime ever made from the 1930s.
For fuck's sake.
Out of Chicago.
Yeah, it wasn't even Japanese. It does sound very exciting. I'm looking forward to watching it.
All right. It's like Pulp Fiction, Ethan, right? It's got non-linear storytelling.
It sounds very Tarantino-y. Yeah, I was thinking that when you explained the premise of the show. I've got one question though. If we end up going along with this show instead of the other one, which we almost certainly will, can we still release the other episode on YouTube anyway, just because we have content for it?
They'll be merged. They'll be merged. It's like a double bill, except you get to see what didn't make the cut.
Yeah, so I think the podcast will start with No Game No Life, us talking about episode 1, then this, and then it will go into us talking about the show that we all actually watched, which I'm guessing is Baccano, because Tony hasn't seen it and wants to, and you've seen No Game No Life 3 times this year, I think you said.
That's true, but Baccano, well, No Game No Life I've seen a lot of times and would always be down to rewatch. Baccano, it's new, it's untested, it's fresh, it's hot on the scene. Makes it interested to see how it goes.
We could do it your way, Harry. Or we could carry on watching No Game No Life as well, and it's almost like we watch an episode of this show, and that's kind of our reward, but the punishment is we have to watch an episode of the other show, and then we alternate between the two. And it's this constant fluctuating, oscillating graph of positive and negative.
It's like when you were doing your minute watch through of, was it Goodfellas and something else?
Yeah,
Good Luck
Chuck, yeah. You've got to balance the good and bad.
If you guys love both anime so much that you couldn't possibly bear to choose one over the other, I guess I would let you watch and review both.
Ethan, do you really want to watch No Game No Life now you suggested this?
No, it was more of a joke.
I love the mediate bit of us like deciding what the format is as we're recording the episode. I think it's a nice peek behind the scenes.
It's just behind the scenes at this point. It's not a peek, like, 80%
You're
of
just
the
fully
podcast.
behind the scene. There is no scene.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, yeah, it's not behind the scene. It just is our content. Our content is us going, what are we gonna do? I guess this is how we'll arrange it. I don't know. You'll know. You'll be listening to it.
All right. Well, without further ado, God, if only we could like cut to Lawrence right now and see what he's doing right now, and it's
Okay,
like
let's-
like somehow synchronized with with us watching Baccano.
Let's watch Baccano. Alright. We'll be
Alright.
back in a minute. Bye, guys.
So we just went away and watched the first episode of Baccano. What does everyone think?
It drops you in. I don't know if it's because it's like been a while since I first watched Durarara, but I felt that did a better job of kind of introducing you to one character, and then you see everything initially through their eyes, get a feel for things, and then it sort of offshoots. Whereas this one is very much, I mean, you're jumping off characters such as they are, sort of two kind of journalists-ish, talking about this story that they're alluding to and what would be the best way to tell it. And then they sort of jump around. So my feeling is from this first episode, you're kind of just meant to be beginning to get a feel for what's going on.
Yeah.
And the complexity of it, and then hopefully over the next episodes they'll like explain things a bit more. You'll begin to piece things together. But yeah.
Well, I hope that's the case, because watching this first episode, even though I enjoyed it, felt like what I had when I accidentally watched the first episode of the third series of Peaky Blinders without having watched any of the other show. I felt like I was thrown into the deep end very quickly. All these characters were being introduced out of nowhere. So much plot going on at once. I don't know how I feel about it, because I don't have a very clear picture of what's going on at the moment. It's very, very hectic. It feels all over the place. And I hope that as the show goes on, I can understand a bit more what the conflicts are that are going on, because right now I'm very, very confused.
You get the sense that you've been like dropped into like this ocean, and you're just looking at all the cool stuff that keeps appearing randomly.
I guess we should talk about the setting, which is really cool. It's 30s kind of prohibition New York. You know, we're going for the Sergio Leone Once Upon a Time in America kind of setting here, which is, Ethan mentioned Peaky Blinders. It kind of reminds me of that, even though that's set in Birmingham. It's kind of it's a similar era of kind of gangsters with the Tommy guns and hats. But also there's some like anime magic going on in the background here. You know?
Yeah, people that can have body parts be removed and just die, and then kind of resurrect themselves by reversing the process.
I think
That's pretty cool.
I think just aesthetically, like it's something that appeals to me more than like anime boys with swords. This kind of like 30s gangster kind of thing.
Oh yeah, I'll definitely take the Bugsy Malone aesthetic over some high school with 14-year-olds running around. Definitely.
I guess as we've mentioned, it's very kind of all over the place. It felt a lot like this is the kind of show where a lot of the things we saw are like payoffs, because that's going to be the ending of episode 7 as these characters or whatever. I thought the editing was actually quite like there were some really good cuts where someone looked at the photo and it's suddenly a different photo of the same people. And I thought the first half of the episode had a very good framing device where they were talking about like who's the main character. And even though it's cheap, just having that narration to kind of bridge you into each vignette, I thought worked better. But the second half of the episode, the editing I thought was a lot worse. It would kind of be a scene, and there'd be like a fade to black, and then just a new scene of new characters fade to black. And I thought without that kind of overarching kind of framing device, I was a lot more lost in the second half of the episode. Whereas I had a bit more of a handle on things in the first half. But like it seems good, but there's just a lot going on. There's as many characters as there'd be in the season of The Wire. But the thing with The Wire is it's like an hour long, whereas this is like 22 minutes. So this did feel like an hour condensed to 20 minutes, but it's just aesthetically and some of the storylines going on. You know, there's like a mob feud going on. Someone can heal. Everything kind of hinges around this train disaster. I think it's really interesting, and I look forward to watching more and hope it starts to make more sense. Because if every episode is like this, I don't think I will like this show.
I would absolutely love it if every episode except the last one were like this, and there's like 30 seconds that assemble the jigsaw piece. But I imagine, I think you get more of like a sense of what the whole picture looks like as time goes on, right?
The main hook for me, having watched the first episode, in terms of plot, is, and correct me if I'm wrong, we don't know what happened on this train. We see a little bit at the start, and we see a little bit of the voyage, but we only get the aftermath, right? But we're not quite sure what actually happened on the journey, unless I missed something very obvious.
No. It's top secret. You're not meant to know what's on the train,
Okay,
what's happened to it.
Well, I'm looking forward to seeing what happens, unless they never resolve that, and it's just something that's wasted away.
It's a cool idea of like a Rashomon style thing where you have an event and a lot of storylines are going to intersect and kind of divulge around this event. And the kind of narration being like people who are trying to tell the story. I guess it's just there's like 10 more characters than there needs to be. Like, I guess if we spent a little bit more time, or maybe the characters, maybe it's just me, but a lot of them kind of looked the same. So I was like, when we're seeing someone for a second time, they look very similar to someone we've just seen for the first time.
Yeah, there was one part though in the episode. There was one scene where there were these two characters talking. That were both part of some organised crime group, and one of them was saying, "Oh yeah, you killed this person, and then this other person died," and then the other person says, "Oh no, but you killed this other person," and it just name drops about 7 or 8 people in about 2 sentences, and I feel like it was important information. To do with the spark that created this rivalry between these two organisations, between the 2 different families. There might even be more than 2, I'm not entirely sure. But it felt like crucial information that got completely skipped over because I found it hard to just follow things very, very quickly, because this episode moved at such a razor sharp pace. It was just, everything was over in a flash.
Yeah. You do... It is very, very dense, and I think it is also even more difficult to keep a track of things, because especially like the timeline is like completely, like it bounces all over the place.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I kind of like that sense of just being lost in this massive like maze, like mystery. I think it's just really like interesting.
Tony, I know you hate it when I say this, but I'll say it anyway. If this mafia-centered show was live action, you wouldn't like it very much.
I was gonna say this is absolutely the anime that is the, if it were an anime you'd like it more anime, because it has enough like pop to the like genre trappings. Like, it's not just mafia fighting each other over fucking whoever gets to sell beans on whatever alleyway they illegally sell beans. It's like okay, the mafia are fighting each other, but the mafia are like also immortal, and there's also like a train that crashed that has like 60 other like political things like looping into it. It's just this like maze. Yeah, if it was live action, they would have spent fucking 30 minutes sitting in a room talking about something, and then picking their coats up and leaving to go talk and sit down in another room.
Yeah, but at least then I'd be able to follow what was going on a bit better.
I think I prefer the pacing.
It's better being all at once. Just cut the filler.
I think it's got a lot of promise. It just I need to calm down. I need an episode focused on a character.
It is one thing that it has the element of a lot of the exposition and a lot of the main content just being delivered and shown to you at a very, very quick pace. Then to also have the added element of just jumping around frequently, and you're not quite, you don't really have a sense of some, I guess, linear path of how things are occurring in the show. It's just, here's one thing, and then we're going to show you something that's kind of related to that, but it happened a little bit before. And I think sometimes it's hard to tell just how it all fits together chronologically, especially in the first episode. But
Yeah.
it seems like a very smart show. Jonathan talks about how he's a fan of the other show by the same creators, and it does sound very smart and very, very, very clever. And I've even got a sense of that in the first episode, so I'm sure you need more of the picture to be able to know what's going on, and I don't doubt that it will do that.
Right. Well, let's come back to you when you watch more of it. See you soon. So, hello and welcome again to Animediate, Part 9. This one is where we had to decide between watching Baccano or No Game No Life. We watched the first episode of both and came down and was like, you know what? It was a decisive victory for Baccano. The Chicago, New York mob supernatural thriller told in a non-linear, non-conventional fashion, non-chronologically, was the one we went all the way to watch. And I have to say, I was finishing the show for the first time. I'd only sort of started watching it before, but I remember being very hooked and thinking, oh, I'll save this for watching it for some form of Mediate type thing. And I'm glad I did, because it was very fun to watch, very enjoyable, and I am excited to hear what you all think. So, let's get into it. What are the thoughts?
I mean, off the bat, it's a very good show. There we go. Podcast done. We can.
Dude, this fucking show has such a good, like, jazzy, like, beat kind of soundtrack to it that just comes in at the right moment. So it's like all the chess pieces are like coming in together to form the super chess move. I don't know how you play chess. And it's like that got that jazzy beat that's just like all the reveals happening like in time with the music. It's like, yeah. I feel like that's how we should edit this podcast.
There's also some good orchestral music in it that involve string instruments and pieces of music like that that work really well at building tension, suspense, in particular kind of showdown-esque moments. You've got a lot of really good ones on the train, for sure, where that piece of music that Harry says sounds like a track from The Prestige plays quite a lot.
Yeah, there is a song that's just like straight in The Prestige. It's almost one of the first times you hear it in that film. It pretty much has the same kind of feel to it. I also think the song that plays at the end of the episodes is very funny, because when you've been watching the dub, which I'm sure we'll talk about more, it just doesn't feel like an anime. Just to hear this like Japanese woman singing while there's just like a shot of train tracks and then the character face is flashing on screen. It's just so different to the rest of the show.
Were we the only two that watched the dub?
I think Johnny watched it.
I watched the dub. Yeah.
I watched it.
You made the right
subtitled.
choice, Jonathan.
I did give the dub a try, and I was like, it is always very strange when you get like a dub that does accurate regional accents, because although it makes sense, there's part of your brain that's like not expecting it. It's like, this Italian mobster, why are they speaking actual Italian American in this anime, you know? But so I just went with personal preference, but I'm glad the dub sounds good from what I've heard. If you had all went away,
being honest, I
and
don't
watched the
think
dub,
I would have really enjoyed the show if it had been subbed and I had to listen to all of the characters talking in the language that the show is actually from. I think a lot of the fun comes from listening to a lot of different generic mobster impressions and a lot of just accents that sound like characters from shows that me and Harry have watched, and we can just reference. Oh yeah, Joey Pants is on screen right now, and this is Christopher from The Sopranos.
Yeah, I think when we clocked that the rail tracer just sounds like Michael Imperioli from The Sopranos. That just made every line that character said very, very funny.
Yeah, especially when he was talking about Tony the conductor as well.
You killed Tony.
Yeah. So the director who worked for the English dub, they watched a lot of gangster films as like preparation for it. So apparently they watched The Untouchables, Once Upon a Time in America, Gangs of New York, to name a few. So like he really seemed to go and watch those sorts of things. And then he held auditions for 6 days, during which 140 people had their auditions to find a cast for the 18 main roles. So obviously a lot of effort was taken with the English dub to get good voice actors, because especially in this show you've got not the typical voices that you'd have in an anime, like taking the stereotypical like teenage school drama whatever, you've got young high-pitched voices, whereas in this you're looking for accents, older voices, like completely the opposite of probably the people they have on speed dial to bring in for these sorts of
And you can tell they're all the voice actors are having a lot of fun. Do as in just being in this. I mean, to name a couple of obviously we're talking about Lad Russo because he's fantastic, but Mira and
Isaac.
Isaac, thank you. I mean, they sound like they're just having an incredible time. Every line delivery is delivered so enthusiastically and with such a level of excitement. They're really, really just having a lot of fun with those two characters.
Yeah, and they are really good characters. And also the voice, specifically the one that does Isaac, because he's a voice I recognise. He's someone I really like, mostly because in Steins Gate he voices the main character, and he really does this like melodrama, over the top, not entirely with it character so well. Like these are weirdly very similar characters, even though one is an idiot basically, and the other is supposedly like this great scientist. They are both the same character, pulling things out of their arse, making stuff up on the fly. It's very captivating, very great character. The way the two of them play off each other, Isaac and Miriam, just kind of steal the show in the moments that they're there.
Yeah, even in the subtitle, a lot of that energy comes across in the Japanese voice acting. You get such a great sense of rhythm and call and response from those two characters, where they just come in and it's like they just go with something. They just have like such like a straightforwardness to them that whenever they approach a situation, that is such a good contrast to the fact that the way this story is told, it's like 600 different parallel weaving lines that can time travel, all intersecting with each other. So yeah, I think they're definitely really good. Although I was interested to see that top billing is in fact given to Stanfield, the former Stanfield Clare, aka the former Vino, aka the former rail conductor, aka the current rail tracer. He's got top billing when it comes to the anime, which is interesting.
That is interesting. The author of the light novels of which the series is based claims that the main protagonist is Firo, however you pronounce the second name. So the one that wears green in the hat, who is like. I can see why he says that, but also in terms of the actual story, he is out of it for most of the show.
He's not on the train.
It's strange because me and Harry, while we were watching the show together, was often talking about, well, who is the Tyrion Lannister of this show? There's obviously so many characters. If there was a main one, who would it be? And we actually often said Furo, maybe Jacuzzi Splot, or maybe two of the principal characters.
Yeah, I think the whole bit is that the framing device of it being told by Carol and the vice president of the Daily Days newspaper is that they are like arguing over who the main character is at the start of it, and then right at the end in episode 16 they are arguing over like this show can't end, which I think I like that sort of meta element to it. But I think even though the main character question aside, I think it's a strength of the show that it can bounce between so many different perspectives, and it's interesting that you bring up Game of Thrones. You know, it's another massive cast type show. But I felt, I don't know, with reading Game of Thrones, God, who does that anymore? There were some moments where I was like, this guy again, you know. All right, I've got to go through the fucking Cersei arc or whatever now for a chapter or so. But with fucking Baccano, it's always like you go from one like really cool, interesting perspective to seeing it like from another point and how it intersects and bounces off like the perspective you were just watching. And all the characters are very, very unique and have a very great energy about them, which you know, is good.
Yeah, I think when we did the first episode of the show, you were talking about the framing device being the whole kind of newspaper thing, and I was kind of worried it was going to be completely all over the place, just because of how episode 1 was constructed. And I actually rewatched episode 1 before jumping into number 2, and I still don't think it's a very good first episode of a show. I think it's a bit too much. But when we started episode 2, like pretty much from that to the end of the show, I thought it was like completely, every episode was pretty much great. Because even though you kind of say it jumps all over the place, it does a pretty good job of like, there are, let's say, like 10 to 15 plot strands, and you pretty much follow them in those strands in chronological order. So maybe you follow a character's journey, and the character, you'll be watching it, you'll see the character for the first time in the middle of their journey, but then a couple of episodes later, you'll see how their journey started to get to that point. So I feel like even though it should be really confusing after that first episode, which I think is deliberately confusing, it is very simple and easy to follow. Like most of the stuff you see on the train, you pretty much see from beginning to end, and then you kind of see Firo's story pretty much from beginning to end too. We do need to talk about that episode on the boat as well, because that's the Twin Peaks episode 8 of this show. But yeah, that one's completely different to every other one.
Yeah, it's because it's a complicated. Yeah, it's both kind of complicated, but there is a kind of simplicity to it in a sense. Or rather, there's no... Like, by the end, I definitely can't give you every detail about everything that led into everything. But I know the gist of it enough that I feel satisfied. You know, I got all the information I needed to get to, like, understand why a lot of the big things happened. It all does kind of fall together fairly pleasingly.
I would go further than Johnny said, where I think I have the same thing that he does, where I had enough of a sense of the plot to still be interested in it from beginning to end, even though I can't tell you exactly how every puzzle piece fits with one another. But even then, there are still a fair amount of characters whose motivations to me, maybe I wasn't paying enough attention, it probably was that, are kind of left unknown to me. But having said that, I don't think you need to be constantly aware of what every character is trying to do at any one moment to have a really good time watching the show. I think that's a really big strength of it, because I was always interested in what was happening. I was always engaged, even if I didn't exactly know why a character was doing something in particular. What they were doing in the moment was still, fun enough for me to just have a good time watching it, even if I didn't really understand it completely.
Yeah, I think part of that is because the real strength of the show, I'd say, is the characters and how they all just interact off each other, which I think speaks a lot to how the writer of the light novels sort of created this story. As in, he didn't create a story for it, he focused on these characters, imagined how they would interact and how that would then influence the story. They were very much creating all of these ideas and then seeing where they'd end up. So he says, although he allowed the characters to move how they want, he found it troublesome because there were some characters that weren't getting as involved in the plot as he wanted, and others that moved too much, leaving the plot in ruins. I get the feeling from that sort of quote that he creates these characters, imagines how they'd interact, and then the story kind of comes from that, and then there's a few things he then has to tweak to like put some of the stuff together. And I think that's why we feel so satisfied with what we've watched, even if we can't give you every detail about why everything happened, because all of the characters in the moments have all made sense enough, and have all created very interesting scenes that have all like interacted and flowed between each other very well. Like, it's felt like a very well realized world and story.
Yeah, I definitely agree, and I also think that there's a good sense of like, because you see almost the ending of the story at the beginning. You see, for instance, Lad Russo off the side of the train tracks with Lua, with his bone arm hanging out. You get like a good sense that like characters almost bow out of the story at like a good point. That, you know, no one becomes the focus. You know, it's always like a good like contrast and balance between all the different angles, which is good.
Yeah, I think first of all, we haven't mentioned that the train's called the Flying Pussy Film. That is consistently funny every time they bring it up. But I think that everything on the train is fantastic, and I think the kind of immortality plot with kind of Firo, Miser, Ennis, that kind of stuff, I think all that's great. There are a lot of kind of, I'd say about a third, maybe even just a quarter of the episodes would be some of the mob stuff, where there'd be the Genuards.
I'm a Genoa, and you're a Gandor.
Yes, some of those scenes, like, I know that's kind of loosely linked to the immortality plot, but some of those scenes I didn't find as interesting. Like, I found like there were one too many characters and families who were actually in the intro who just aren't as significant because they're not on the train. They're just not as significant into the plot.
I think it's because all the physical appearances of those characters mesh and blur into one. All the Gandors, the Runaradas, which is all the families to me. When you see the henchmen or the people who are working for him, for consistently all through 16 episodes, I struggled to follow who was working for who, to the point where, well, Furo has a pretty iconic design. I can always recognise him in that green hat, so I care about what he's going through. Whereas Gandor, henchman number 1, I've seen that face a few times, and he's definitely doing something, but I'm not quite sure what it is. And I'm definitely with you, where I find that stuff less interesting than the main plot.
That stuff's definitely the weakest, and I'd say the strongest part of the show is definitely the train, because you know every character on the train.
Mm-hmm.
More do get kind of revealed, but you pretty much know quite early on what everyone's deal is.
Yeah, but the really cool thing about the train is they introduce this threat that's very intimidating and impossible to overcome, that's slowly making their way from the back of the train to the front, and there's this kind of like persistent force propelled all the way through the train plot that I really, really like, and then characters are slowly kind of realising what's going on. Oh, there's this person who keeps killing the black suits and the white suits, and characters are eventually finding more and more bits of information about what's going on in the train, and that's really satisfying to watch as well.
Even before you get to the rail tracer, you have just the scene where the black suits, the white suits, and then Jacuzzi Splots people all kind of burst in at the same time to that one, because they have their 3 separate plot lines. And I think it's very funny when you find out that Lad Russo's entire motive to being on the train was just to kill people as well. You're like, oh, okay, there's probably a reason this is happening. You're like, oh no, Lad Russo just wants to kill people. So that's why he's taking the
He did it in self-defense, Harry. Come on.
All the kills in self-defense.
The idea of the train being like the main like device for the plot, it's so good because, for one, you get like such, like, even though it's such a complicated story, the fact that it's mostly about this one train almost gives you like a very neat cross section of what's happening. Like the fact that it's like almost linear in a way, where you know that there are the white suits at one end, the black suits at the other end, some fucking people in the middle, you know, that are in the dining car. There's a freight train over here. You know that like if someone gets off that train, what are they going to do? Catch up to it? You know, once you're off, you know, kind of type deal. It helps like almost constrain this very rambunctious story in a great way.
Yeah, it's like a story in a locked room almost.
Like 12 Angry Men.
Yeah.
Except it's a fucking train. Also, you know, I have been for a while a proponent of the crime films suck, gangster films suck, fucking, you know, troop, the brigade. You know, we wear our own color of suits, if you will. But turns out all you need to do to make those stories good is to one, bring in a whole fuck ton of supernatural elements. Just make it Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood, basically. You know, make people homunculuses, make people immortal. And two, just make the interesting characters really visually interesting to watch. And a good way to do that is to make everyone sick as fuck. Make everyone an expert, like beating the shit out of each other. And you're constantly keeping track of this mental list of like, okay, who's the baddest dude in town? Who could beat the fuck out of who else? You know, so that when they have their dramatic conflicts, you're like, not only are you excited for like plot reasons, but you're also like, fuck, Lad Russo is gonna fight Chain Laforet, you know, and then the Rail Tracer shows up and can beat all of them. It's sick. It's good. Fucking yeah. Why didn't The Godfather have Lad Russo in it, beating the shit out of people? Would have been a better film.
I mean, the idea that amuses me is what if The Godfather, but because they're all immortal when they gun down whatever his name is, he just immediately gets back up and just
Sonny gets back up. He's like, God, I'm such a hothead. I hate to do this, and he kills everyone. Yeah.
But it's also comical how many characters are immortal by the end of the show.
Mhm.
I think it got to the point where we just assumed if a character dies, they'll just be able to reverse that process back.
There were a few kills that Ethan when you reacted to them. I'm like 80% sure this person's immortal. So I was like holding my breath. I'm like, are they coming back? Are they not?
So that's definitely true. But there was one moment where it was just it was more the shock of seeing Lad Russo unload 2 shotgun shots into this young boy's face and blow his head off that made me gasp. More than actually
But
thinking he might be dead.
You see that in the first episode though, and then
Yeah,
you start
Okay,
seeing the
alright,
blood go back into
Jonathan,
them.
I'm going to be honest with you. When I talk about
Also-
Baccano, I'm going to be talking about episode 2 onwards. Right, episode 1 was a...
Well, anyway, that moment happens after you see the boat episode, where you see that character, so you know that character is immortal by that point.
Can we talk about the boat episode? Because it's really cool for a show that has a lot of just different subplots. The idea of having an episode which is just a linear story that at first you're like, why are we here? But it's just a completely self-contained episode that does a really satisfying job of explaining where the kind of immortality comes from.
Mhm.
I loved the whole kind of the Vivitch style of it, where the devil appeared in lots of different ways, but like as different things. I love
with the voice of Viggo Mortensen from the Lord of the Rings films.
Yes, I loved how they personified this kind of the devil. Yeah, I liked that. Like, I was like recognizing characters. I'm like, oh, okay, so that's Miser, who we've seen in the background because he hadn't been like a main character up until then. Obviously, that's the guy who's trying to get it. Just like a few of the characters, I was like, okay, that must be this person, and kind of piecing it together like that. I think they did it in a really cool way, and I guess at that point, the immortality had been like shown quite a lot. But you didn't really know. You didn't know kind of the source of it. So having an entire episode to explain it at that point, you kind of trust that the audience understand it. I thought it was a really cool way of doing it.
Yeah. And I definitely like that, even though it introduces immortality, which lets you have, you know, the sick moments where you gun down a character and then they're just like, hey, I'm actually immune to your bullets type deal. I think it does a good job of like still keeping that tension when having immortal characters, because you know that there's a way to defeat them. You know, they still have that one weakness, which is they can't be eaten by other immortal people, which is good.
I liked the early on in the show they had these kind of like Fargo-esque moments where just like someone smoking outside the place ends up burning it down, and then that leads to the bottles, and then like the bottles kind of get like passed around a lot until it's almost accidental. Like an entire kind of crime family end up immortal. I liked that kind of like following it. I felt like, and you kind of got like every episode you get a little bit more of that kind of storyline. The Firo stuff. I thought that was wrapped up in episode 13 in a really satisfying way.
Yeah.
So much so that it could be the finale of the show.
It could be.
Even though it's not.
But well, the show has no ending, Harry. It lives on in our hearts and minds. But yeah, especially just the fact that the way that this story can have so many things that you would consider arseholes if they showed up in any other show. You would consider them like, oh, Deus Ex Machina. Oh, that's awfully convenient, isn't it? But no, because this show has like an eye for detail. It has like every fucking knock-on effect you can trace back, 1,000 years, whatever. It has those great moments where the main final villain is defeated by just being coincidentally ran over as he jumps out of a window trying to chase someone. And they back up and also run over the other group of villains that was attacking them. It's so good. And then it comes back at the end with so many callbacks and like nods to you remember this thing that showed up? We did, It's very satisfying.
Yeah, it is all very satisfyingly put together. To answer what Harry said about kind of ending on the 13th episode, at least according to the IMDb trivia, the last 3 episodes were never publicly aired but released on DVD.
I see. Yeah, that might be
is what this is claiming. Yeah, so I think the idea is it's meant to kind of finish on that 13th, but it definitely feels stylistically better to finish on that 16th episode.
Episode 16 is really good, but I don't know. I think the characters, the storylines get kind of wrapped up in the final 3 episodes were just the characters I didn't like as much. I wasn't really invested in their stories as much. So obviously, I found 13 more satisfying. And also 14 and 15 having to pull out that new character who's just not very good. But no, 16 is.
Right,
it is a good episode. Definitely.
Yeah, the character they introduce on the 14th episode is not very good, but also I think they're meant to be not very good.
Yeah, they're meant to be kind of like knockoff Loud Russo.
Yeah, and
I don't know. They are a scenery chew at the end of the day. They're there to do what they're meant to do.
They are one of the characters that made me laugh the most, though. But I did also dislike them the most.
The reason he's funny is because he narrates everything that he's thinking at once. He has an internal monologue that he just expresses constantly.
It's just an external monologue.
Every
other sentence disagrees with what he said before, but he doesn't even allude to that. And he's just the biggest idiot as well. He comes up with a stupid plan. He doesn't even do it correctly because he kidnaps the wrong person. He realizes he might be kidnapping the wrong person, but is just like, fuck it. I think, this show really likes going for things that are kind of, I don't know, having incompetent characters. So you've got arguably some of the characters that kick off the whole events are those 2 that accidentally set fire to that building, causing the immortality juice to, end up doing all of its weird stuff. And right at the end, you've got this guy who kidnaps the wrong person. You've even got with Isaac and Miriam running over the bad guy near the end. I mean, not taking him out, but helping cause them being taken out, and also them kind of being the reason everybody did get immortal, and then not realizing it until 2003.
No, Johnny, I have to correct you. It's actually 2001 in New York City, which is introduced with a shot of a plane. And I was like, oh fuck, what are they doing?
Oh no!
Oh my god.
Yeah, I really like the bit they do in episode 2013 where they make you realise how old the characters are, but not by just doing it to showing that they have really out of date social views. They're like, oh man, mothers are going to work these days. What a shame. It's also, you do get a massive amount of culture shock when you see 2001 New York in this anime. You're just like, your eyes have to like adjust to it because you're used to like the beige kind of color palette that's been going.
Yeah, you mentioned the Untouchables and Once Upon a Time in America, and it's definitely I think it captures that kind of feeling of Prohibition New York quite well. But I think there's a lot of kind of alleyways and streets that are very non-specific. It's not like every episode is just all the landmarks. And like we say, like the best stuff of the show is just on a train, which I think is pretty good. Also, you mentioned earlier about the kind of the kind of fate and chance and stuff, and I definitely feel like Isaac and Miriam, whatever her name is, they're like the best kind of embodiment of that kind of mindset that the show has. That it's kind of all over the place, but everything kind of ends up clicking together in a really satisfying way. And pretty much every scene with those two, like they don't really know why they're doing things, but they just kind of do them.
They like, it begins with them going for 9 months to prospect for gold. Or rather, I guess we start seeing them whilst they're prospecting for gold, and then 9 months later, because of a letter from Ennis, they decide to head back. And then by the time you reach the end, you realise that, like, literally their story is the stuff in, I think, 1931. Then they go immediately at the end of that plot. They have to go on the run, so they decide to go and prospect for gold, like the other side of America, for 9 months. And then, as they're on the train back, that's the Flying Pussyfoot. So they're there for the events of 1932. Yeah, they're a fun bunch.
It's amazing how nothing ever feels static in this show. There's always just a good sense of rhythm. It's like jazz. It's free form. It's kind of a lot of strange elements that are being worked into there, but at the end of the day, it like picks up a good rhythm, and it always comes together for those good climaxes, those good moments of fucking rest as well. When you're like, okay, that's how everything comes together. That's everything slotting into place.
One thing I do want to mention, so comparisons to Durarara. So that was the next thing. Well, maybe not the next thing, but this, yeah, the writer would go on to write, produced by the anime produced by the same team. I imagine, just because they feel quite similar. But anyway, what I want to mention is I am surprised with how many characters this show has, and how each of them have got this very distinct character. How there is no overlap between this and Durarara in terms of characters. I was kind of expecting I'd see at least a few where I'm like, oh yeah, that's kind of a reskin of this one, or oh, you've got that idea there. And it just, you can't really make those comparisons between those. There's like two things I can kind of notice, and it's things like, so in this there's a character that doesn't speak. There's also a character that doesn't speak in Durarara, but it's for different reasons, like completely different reasons. And then also this, they've got the character of not character so much, but they've got this information broker, and it's like the Daily Days, so you've got like two people that work for it and the anonymous person behind all of the papers, and then there's also a character who's an information broker in Durarara, but they're an individual character, and they unlike the like unknown entity behind a newspaper that just seems to be collecting information, he's doing stuff, he's enacting things, he's got his own plot, and he is a very distinct character. Because when you first meet the like blonde guy that's working in the Daily Days, I was like, we're gonna have like a reskin of that character. But just the second moment you see them and they're cowardly basically, and like bleat out some information, I'm like, oh no, they are very different from from the other guy. So yeah, there's so many characters in this. There's so many characters in Durarara, and they're all very distinct, very individual. It's very impressive that like one guy has managed to create all of these good, captivating and distinct characters.
When me and Harry started watching the show, and we'd watch the credits each time. I kept thinking there are so many characters in the show. I just don't think I could keep track of them all. But then at some point, you rewatch the intro for the, I don't know, 10th time maybe, and you kind of go, oh, you know what, there's not really that many characters, is there?
There's so many more that aren't even in the intro as well. Like half the characters of the show, pretty much everyone involved in the Daily Day stuff isn't in the intro. You know, some characters who are in the intro don't get a title card. You're like,
the rail tracer is hidden in there.
Really great people that just aren't given their own title card.
Yeah.
It's a good intro, though.
One of my favourite, like, definitely not, major characters, so I guess you'd say minor characters, would be Rachel, the one that is there from the newspaper just to spy on what's going on the train.
Link.
Oh yeah, there's Rachel. Oh fuck. She does have a bit of a Link outfit going on.
Yeah, it just looks like Link, honestly.
She's green.
In my theme of saying voice actors from Steins Gate in this that I like, she's voiced by the person that does Kirisu.
I see.
So Ryoga Narita, the guy that wrote the light novels on which this is based, it's just, you know, with our light novels, which, you know, I mean they're all great in their own way.
I feel like a sinner comparing those two things.
It's like, oh, okay. So there's this guy that has managed to write these, you know, actually good light novels, and he started writing them. The first one went out when he was 23. So in 3 years' time, guys, we better start producing on the level of this.
Yeah, we got to up our game.
Are we going to start wrapping up, or are we going to talk about Lad Russo some more?
All right, Lad Russo.
Oh, yeah, Lad Russo. What?
Legend.
Yeah, he's the favourite character of Ryoga Narita. And I think some of that does kind of come through, I feel.
That doesn't surprise me. He has... I feel like that character has infinite rewatchability value. Whenever he's on screen, if I'm looking away for a second, my eyes just dart back to the screen because he's so magnetic. And the voice actor who does him is so fantastic as well. Every line that he delivers is just so on point.
Like the sing-song way he does stuff, the little jigs he does.
Yeah, but he's just a really good force at creating chaos and destruction and death and violence. I mean, he's really someone who just, like Harry said earlier, goes places to just upset the status quo, and I really like that.
That's a great trait for a fucking character in a piece of fiction to have. Yeah, I'm normally not a fan of like psycho characters, right? Because I feel like their motivations are inscrutable and they're not very relatable or human or even that entertaining to watch. But I feel like Lad Russo comes in and just ups all of them. He's like, you know, I'm here to kill people and I'm going to do it while being a cool guy. And he says, like, there's so many lines that, like, really endear you to him. Like, the fact that he says, like, yeah, we're all wearing white suits because the blood splatter will look really cool on them. And I'm like,
yeah,
legend. It's like he's looking out for the audience, you know. He's got your best interests at heart because he knows you want to see people getting gatted. And he's just there to cause the chaos.
Think that this is someone who enjoys... I mean, he's basically a serial killer who abducts women, but he's the best character in the show.
I'm surprised you like him so much, Tony, because if this was live action, he was played by Joe Pesci.
He would not have any of the magnetism, though. He would not be like have that rhythm, that energy. He would just be kind of whiny and annoying. He'd be like, hey, I'm gonna shoot you. It's like, no. This guy, he punches you with like the one frame punch. He's like, come on, you better know some of the famous American boxers, don't you?
Do you think you'd like Goodfellas more if when Tommy DeVito kills Billy Bat, it's like this like over the top boxing scene?
Yeah, I would.
That'd be great.
Yeah, I think one of the other things you can see is if you compare Lad Russo to his underlings, basically the other people in the white suits, because they they give off the energy of a more like typical like psycho character you'd have in an anime. The kind of grins they get animated with, and the voice they sort of have. And I think that's part of why you can see why Lad Russo shines through so much, because like his henchmen have the same like the level of psycho that like most animes would have in them. Like that would be their psycho character is like one of those kind of badly not really thought out so much. It's just kind of ticking the stereotype boxes. Whereas Lad Russo just transcends. He does it in his own way.
Yeah, he brings the charm.
It's very distinct from those sorts of like psycho characters you would have. Where it's just like, oh, all we need to do, slightly unsettling voice, make him have a weird smile, have him with a knife at some point. Like that, yeah. He's actually got a character.
I think what else Lad Russo has going for him as well is it's not the first time we see him in the show, but he has such a one of his first impressions is so strong, where he's in in one of the rail cars, and there's that guy who challenges him, and he takes time out of his schedule to just completely destroy this person who's in front of him. And it's just like, okay, you got this guy walking around on the train, some shit's going to go down, basically. And from that point onwards, he's just... Yeah. He stands out quite heavily.
He was very different from what I was expecting from his title card and his name, where it's just like, oh, Lad Russo, that's going to be like kind of playboy. Yeah,
the womanizer, the kind of smug guy. No, he's like, yeah, I want to kill you, Lua. You're the only fucking woman that I want to kill or something. This weird like romance arc that has like a kind of very sweet, in a weird way, wholesome ending.
Yeah, I would never want to date Ryoko Narita, because between this and Durarara, the couples he have are on some angle cute, on another angle are just some of the most fucked up relationships I have ever seen in shows.
I don't know, the Rail Tracer and Chane, that instant proposal that's kind of smooth.
It comes really out of nowhere. It's still like this guy is a murderer and just randomly decides, yeah, I'm kind of interested in keeping your dad safe if it means like I am with you. Like, yeah, there's a cuteness to it, but still like a weirdness, almost a transactional nature to it. And then Lad Russo is the worst one of all, where like they're this weird couple where it's all about death and eventually killing one of them. But yeah,
the Jacuzzi Splot one is interesting because I think it's the casting of the voice actors, but I just assumed that the woman was like Jacuzzi's mother because she seems so much older than he was. So for that to not be for that, I guess it's not like a relationship. But like I did spend like half the show assuming like it was like a mother and son.
They're like the same height though. I think that's a bit.
Yeah, I never thought they were mother and son. I might have thought she was a bit older and more in charge, but it wasn't weird to me when the kiss happened. I was like, I'm surprised they did it as soon as that, but like I felt like that was roughly where that was heading to.
Yeah. It makes sense.
That was when I realised that it's not mother and son. These two are probably a similar age, even though the voice cast is like 20 years in this.
Harry, you've watched anime. You know that just because there was a kiss there does not mean they are not related.
Yeah, that's true. It could have been his 9-year-old sister.
They're not blood related, okay? In No Game No Life or Eromanga Sensei. You've got to keep it PG. Come on.
Anyway, so I guess Jacuzzi and her, they're a good relationship. I'd say. I don't. There's nothing weird there.
It's a very funny
that
name.
One's actually
Jacuzzi Splot.
God, I wish real people had the names in this show. Imagine meeting someone and they're like, yeah, I'm Jacuzzi Splot.
I'm Cheslaw Mayor. just a like
Lad
12-year-old
Russo.
kid just looks up
Yeah,
at you
Lad
like,
Russo and Lad is his
Tesla.
first name. That's what people call him. Hey, hi lad, how are you today?
Boss lad.
Boss
there's-
lad, oh my god.
Boss
yeah, well,
lad.
let's start saying that.
And then you've
So-
also got Luck.
Luck Gandor.
Lucky.
Are we going to talk
I
about the
love-
reveal in the final episode?
yeah.
Oh, the fucking where the devil is a being. That's it.
Yeah, didn't I
Luck
call
the
it?
whole time.
I did call it. I did when we saw him. I
Galaxy
said,
Brain.
"Hey, that guy looks a lot like Luck Gandor." And I was right. He's the guy from episode 5.
Madness.
The one call I
enjoy-
made.
As well, I think he's called Duck or something like that. The character that just wants to make everyone smile, and who like tries to get people's attention on the ship, but slips off the anchor and almost drowns.
That is
Yes.
such a funny scene because it's like, stop him. He's like, hey, look, does a handstand, and falls to presumably his death. And it's like, what is he trying to achieve?
God,
You
this
can't stand
show
that
has
character,
such
Harry.
chaos in it. It's amazing.
His accent is awful as well.
Yeah, Harry
Yeah,
Reid doesn't like
yeah.
his accent.
It is
It's a
Elba.
strange northern,
Oh,
northern Cockney accent.
It's like posh Cockney. It's so weird.
Hello, mate. I'm in this show. You're going to talk to me now. This is Luck Gandor. How are you today, Luck Gandor?
It's like if you'd asked an American who kind of knew England quite well, what's a Midlands accent, they'd do that. They would never think of people from the Midlands to like how they do.
I love him though. He is one of my favourite characters, just because of his chaotic energy. The fact that, yeah, his sort of cheeriness. He's kind of off to the side of everything, doing his own thing. He to me feels like someone. If Firo gets to get named as like the main protagonist, then I feel like you can do the same with Duck, where it's he's got kind of more of a through line throughout it. He's one of like the early people that influences the plot, and then definitely in those like I can't remember where exactly in those final 3 episodes he kind of reunites with a bunch of characters, kind of talks with them a bit, and you get kind of closing with all of that.
I do like that he falls off the boat and he's allowed to have one wish granted for him, but you don't find out what that wish is until the very end of the show.
Again, also I like how the devil appears in that. Like I think it's really like I don't want to spoil them a bit, but I mean you got Black Phillip. It's just I like the idea of the devil like appearing in different forms and giving people like an offer. I think that's really cool. And I think it's really cool that Miser's just this like unassuming supporting character who just seems kind of friendly, and you realise that he's just been around for years. I really like that. And the idea of this like mob war is maybe not motivated, but is kind of like dictated by like conflicts that are going back like hundreds of years. I think that's kind of cool.
Yeah, definitely.
Sure.
It's just like this is the kind of show that you can really zoom into on like the fine details, like how the fact that Jacuzzi Splot didn't want Nice to feel sad because she's very scarred from a bomb accident that is showed like in the most smash cut way.
That's what that was. Jesus Christ, we were like, what the fuck was that scene?
Did you not realise?
Nah, to be
I
fair,
thought it was fairly.
Yeah, I thought
probably
it
was looking at my phone.
Do you want to
Yeah,
know
and then
as well?
suddenly I was like, what the fuck?
When they were deciding the character of Lisa, yeah, so they wanted someone with an eye patch, but then they were like, oh no, there's quite a few people that have got, eye patches. What we'll do, they'll have an eye patch and then wear glasses over the top. And it really works as a distinctive look.
But yeah, it's
I like
great.
Hollister. She's cool. And I like Jacuzzi. I like that entire group of people. The two
Yeah,
big guys that they have with them. As
The
well.
guy who I
They're
could
really
never
cool.
understand.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
Donnie.
He was, yeah, you need to turn the volume up for that guy. 'Cause
Yeah, I like the dynamic that Jacuzzi has in that he's this sort of scared person, but kind of very brave underneath all of that.
he's a
And
devil
although
man crybaby.
He's also-
and although his
Fuck's
voice
sake.
initially annoyed me, sort of later as you realise the moments where he has to like where he's forcing himself to be brave. Basically, you see how he gets rid of that quivery nature in his voice. Means I can excuse it because you're like, no, this is actually a character thing.
But he's also a very selfless character, isn't he?
The way
he
he's
puts
kind
himself
of
in
this
harm's way for others is really, really sweet.
Yeah, the way he's this kind of gang leader because he's just kind of friendly and loved by everyone is kind of the vibe I get from him. Kind of one of the introductory flashbacks of him where you see him like cornered, being beaten up by like these gangsters, and then all of his friends like appear and like ambush them, and they've got this sort of blue eye effect on them.
Like sands
was
on the
very
tail.
interesting, especially like counter-opposed to the rail tracer, who's like this shadow with red eyes who works alone. You've then got Jacuzzi, this guy that doesn't want to kill anyone really, but anyway, his like friendly and completely opposite nature means that he has this web of friends that, you know, when they get represented, it's like the opposite of blue eyes, a whole crowd of them in shadow.
God, the rail tracer is so cool. I love his reveal where it looks like a monster on the outside of the train, and his whole speech is like, "This is a fictional world that exists in my head. If you kill me, the world ends."
Yeah, he is.
I don't need to be immortal because I won't die.
Yeah.
It's like the most like over the top god complex to the point where like, is this guy just a god? Is he just a god in his story? You've got a god and a devil.
The reveal scene is really good as well.
Mm-hmm.
You see so many flashes of the rail tracer. It kind of looks a little bit different each time because of like, I guess, the ways people are seeing him. But when you kind of, again, in the kind of storytelling device, you go back to the moment where he killed the conductor, and then you kind of follow his journey. I think that's a great reveal.
And at that point, you've already seen those two bodies at the back of the train as well, so you know that something happens there. But the thing that I wanted to mention
so many times.
Yeah, go on, Johnny. Sorry.
Well, yeah. So you've seen those two bodies there, and you've just kind of gently assumed they're both the conductors that were there from the beginning.
That's true. Yeah.
Yeah, and then you realise, no, that was someone else that died, and actually their hair colour is similar but slightly different.
I do like oh, sorry, you go first, Ethan.
No, Tony, you go.
All right. The thing I do
actually, you know what, Tony, I'll go.
You fucker.
You can go.
What? This okay. The thing I do.
This is all getting cut out.
The thing I do like is that the fact that in a lot of shows the old timer man Tony, the conductor, who dies right before retirement, first of all, it's amazing how quickly they pull at that heartstring card of like, I'm an old man, I'm passing on my job, I'm just about to retire, and he fucking like gets insta-capped. It's happened so quick. Like the thing is, like,
Tony.
Yeah, he killed Tony. The fact that would be such a throwaway thing in most other films or pieces of media, where it's like, oh, that was just a background character we killed, you know? Fuck that guy. Who cares? Forget about him. But the fact that like almost the main like driving force of the show is like, you fucker, you killed Tony, the guy who was a day from retirement. I'm gonna go on this bloodthirsty rampage now. I just love it.
Tony.
Yeah,
Can I say what I was?
Yeah, go ahead.
Adriana.
Stop. The thing that we haven't talked about on this show at all so far, actually, is the violence, which is quite gory at times and quite in your face, especially some of the torture techniques that are used. Having the head and face pressed against the rail track with the threat of like your entire face being sawn off.
Like, I know some of the characters are immortal, but this is one of the most violent things I've ever seen. Like, Jesus Christ, seeing like individual fingers coming off.
The rail tracer does bite Thomas's or Chez's like fingers off. He just does that. He's like,
it's incredibly violent.
Oh man, it's God, yeah.
I mean, it's good. I like violence, but
it's definitely a shocking It doesn't hit too hard. I was never like super grossed out. Like I think it knows when to cut away, which is good.
That's true, but I think for me, I was a little bit. I never felt sick or anything, but I was a little bit squeamish at that because I guess it was the thought of someone's face being ripped to shreds if it gets pressed against a rail track on a train moving at very high speeds. Just the thought of that and seeing, I guess, the threat of it would make me want to turn away at those moments.
I think it definitely got a reaction out of me in the same way that when I'm watching Twin Peaks: The Return and I see Ike the Spike stab someone to death, I'm like kind of laughing, but I'm also like squinting because it's so disgusting. It definitely got it got a reaction out of me.
These two need to listen to our podcast so they can understand all the references we've made.
They do. I really this is a thing that's only for Ethan. But I like that I'm watching was watching Baccano and Twin Peaks: The Return at the same time because I felt like they kind of complemented each other. And they're just both these like shows with so many great characters. But whenever a new scene starts and it's like a random character we've not seen for an episode or so, I'm like, yes, I can see what this person's up to. Although Twin Peaks is a little bit better. But yeah, it was a good show, and I think we should wrap up soon.
Okay, yeah. All right. So who wants to go first? I think I may have.
Tony, you should probably go first because this is Animediate 9.
Yeah.
We need to know if it actually gives a 9.
I think Tony normally goes first anyway.
Yeah, I think I may have lowballed this, giving it a 9. I might just be on the post show high. I did very recently finish the show, like after we were meant to start recording is when I finished it. So my time management skills here are great. I quite liked Graham Spector, even though he is a pale imitation of Lad Russo. I did like the sense that things were tying up, yet somehow the threads were being left open, in a way that's just meant to sort of incite your imagination, in the way that a good ending can do that and also feel satisfying, I think, which is great. That's also what is commented on.
Yeah, definitely one of the reoccurring ideas I get from this writer is this idea of like stories never really ending. It's definitely what they do with Durarara, where like at the end of each season it's still kind of like, yeah, but we may have wrapped up that story, but the city's still going. Like this has got effects that are gonna happen. It's gonna affect a whole bunch of other things, and these people are still living here. It's like, yeah, the story always continues.
Very organic. Yeah, it's a great sense of rhythm and flow and style, how it balances like so many different disparate plot strands and elements, while all of them being unique and enjoyable in their own right, make this show very exceptional. I'm going to have to give it a 10 out of 10.
Johnny, do you want to go next?
Yeah, I think I'm also going to go for a 10 out of 10. It's sort of on the divide between 10 and 9, but I'm still definitely riding out on a high, having finished it still. So for now we'll go 10 out of 10. Definitely my favourite thing that we've done so far for Animediate.
I'll go next, and I'll also say I'm going to give this a 10. No, I'm kidding.
You just wanted to put pressure on me?
Yeah, I did. for the Mediate 40. No, I'm not going to give it a 10, but I do think this is a really good show. I think out of any of the things that we've done on this podcast on Animediate so far, if any of them I would ever rewatch, it would quite solidly be this one. Mostly to rewatch the first episode and actually know what the hell was going on there.
Oh man!
But yeah, no, it was really fun, and it's the first time on this show I felt like watching anime wasn't a chore. Like I actually was looking forward to watching the next batch of 3 episodes the following day, and it really that to me really goes to show how much I was into Baccano. So I'll give it a really solid 8 out of 10.
Okay, I was just checking. Yeah, so this isn't, in my opinion, the best thing we've done because we did Neo Yokio, which I think is better. But I think this is definitely the second best thing we've done. Yeah, I'll also give it an 8. I think it's really solid. There's a few things that I just kind of just interested me less, and I wasn't as invested in certain characters, like Eve Genoa. But listening to people in anime go like, "We got the boss!" I'm like, yeah, this is good stuff. I think it's a solid 8.
Alright, well, no one agreed with me. No one gets any points. We all lose.
Yeah, it really was an anime.
I guess it averages out to a 9 though.
Oh, that's the metaphorical win.
We're Chaz Palminteri, and we've just seen Kevin Spacey leave, believing he's not Kaiser Soze. And we're sipping our coffee mug, you know. And then we look at the board, and we fucking drop the mug.
No!
I watched No Game, No Life.
What the
I want to talk about
Wait, you serious? Did you
How the hell did that happen?
Oh my god, Harry! Why would you
Twist.
subject yourself to that?
Uh,
What are you thinking?
Okay, my origin story is I realised on Netflix you can watch things at 1.5 speed on your phone. And I realised No Game, No Life was on Netflix because it got recommended to me after I finished Madoka Magica. So I would watch it at 1.5 speed on my phone whenever I did a shit. And that's exclusively how I watched the entire show over the last 2 weeks.
And you managed to actually...
All the story
the whole
threads
thing
have been
just taking
fucking
shit.
combined.
Yeah,
This is
1.5
galaxy
speed.
brain convergence.
But yeah,
What do you
I
think?
wanted to quickly review No Game, No Life.
Johnny,
Okay,
should I
okay.
do a podcast on The Last Kingdom while these two are doing this?
I mean, John and Ethan haven't seen the show unless they also have some fucking reversal to pull on me.
Alright.
First, I'm just like, every time I've been pissing, I've been listening to the audio at 2 times speed.
I was hoping Johnny might have watched it as well, because he finished
Oh.
Baccano so quick, and it's just on Google Drive. I was like, I hope Johnny's also done the same thing. Secretly watched the other show. But
This is
Yeah,
the ultimate twist reveal.
that's what I wanted to end the podcast. But no,
It's fucking
I'll really
amazing.
quickly review No Game, No Life.
Does it get better, Harry?
It's actually not that bad. Okay, so I'm glad it got cancelled because the structure and pacing is absolutely insulting. Like, the fucking sequel bait is insane. Like,
Oh,
I've never
yeah,
seen
I-
a series of television do so little in the time it has. They set up like all of these factions, and then by the end of season 1, they've beaten like one of them, and they're like, "Oh yeah, we have to get all of the game pieces to challenge God," and then the show just ends. Like,
I did have to fucking pre-warn you guys with that, because the show should come with like a label, like not safe for people who want satisfying endings.
yeah, like I kind of get the appeal though, because there's something about this awful protagonist who's just like Sora. I think that's his name. But
Yeah,
he's
Sora
just
and
so
Shiro.
good at everything. Like it's quite satisfying to watch because he'll be like, "Oh, I saw that coming. I was actually doing this the whole time." And you're like, "Yeah, God, he's a gamer. You know, he's smart."
He's a pro gamer.
I think the voice acting is really good actually from the dub. I like the molested 9-year-old. I think she's got like a very funny line delivery. Obviously, it's basically the first show we did in terms of some of the content. Like, it's so similar. Especially, like, I don't know, I think Stephanie was a good character. I like the dynamic she brings from episode 3. It's a bit weird that she's just in love with the character because of, like, a curse or whatever. There's a character who doesn't understand English grammar, so she says thank you at the end of all her lines.
Oh yeah, that's like a really weird translation thing. Basically, what she's trying to do is it's like, because in Japanese she ends all her sentences with like des, which is like a polite thing. I guess it's like a grammar particle, right? But there's no really good way to translate that. Like, there's no equivalent in English, so it's just like thank you to just show she's trying to be polite.
Yeah,
So it's-
I think,
yeah, that's-
I
that's
think in
the-
the
that's the-
dub, it was like
that's the
quite
bit.
funny though. Like every time, if I laughed at the show, which was very rarely, it was normally that character. There was like a cool bit where one of the characters had their memories erased, and because it's such a bright and vibrant show, it kind of goes completely like black and white for like a little bit, while like the colors kind of go. And that like 5-minute section was kind of cool. But yeah, it's I mean, it's awfully paced, really really creepy. Like the message is just be a gamer, you know, be God if you're a gamer.
If you're a gamer, you should be gamer and proud. Is the
It's kind
theme
of.
of No
I
Game
think it's
Alone.
kind of funny that the character decides that he would like his goal for the entire season is just to like own some cat girls. That's his entire arc.
You telling me this is not a relatable character? You telling me there aren't swathes of people who want to be Sora from fucking No Game No Life?
But I mean, I think it sets its rules out quite well, and it's satisfying to see
Mhm,
some of the games happen. I think ending it with like a 2-episode arc inside a video, not arc, but like episode kind of series ending in this like video game, I felt that was a really weak ending to the show, because it's the ending of the show. I preferred it when it was like the game that he plays with that like angel woman, where it's like the word association. That was a satisfying one.
That's a great episode.
But yeah, it's not the worst. It's not like a war. I mean, it is pretty much a war crime, but it's a good war crime.
It's a good war cry.
Maybe
Still,
it's just because I watched it when I was doing shit. But it's not the worst. It's not the worst show. It's better than Eromanga Sensei. It's better than Asterix War.
What would you give it?
I think I'll give. I don't know. It's like I think I'll. Wait, I actually don't know what I gave the other shows. It's a 4 or it's a 5, and I feel like a 5 might be a little bit too generous.
Tony, if this is a 9 for you and Eromanga is a 1, what does this show have that Eromanga doesn't, or vice versa?
Basically, they are. I think it would have been good to if we had all picked that for the like dreadful symmetry pattern between the two shows, because I do admit they have overlaps, but I like that it's a difference of like it's the same things but executed in such a different way. It's the same like main character little sister like double protagonist combo, but I think what No Game No Life sells is first of all it's much more visually interesting. The character designs are a lot more striking. And to be fair, Eromanga Sensei didn't have like horrible ones, but also like the fact that every frame of that show has like the saturation and the lens flare and the hue set to 100%, and like everything has like this glowing like particle effect that comes in with like these deep bassy sound effect cues whenever something cool happens. It's like, yeah. And the action scenes that build on that with a very good like rising operatic score that is like hype as fuck at certain moments. Like there definitely have been like moments that I've just gone back and watched, like the ones that Harry probably pointed out, like the word association game, which are just like
that's a genuinely good sequence
where
in
it's
a show that is like pretty bad. I'm like, yeah, it's very satisfying whenever like you say, like the music and the visuals kind of click into place, and you know the rules, you know kind of what's at stake, and you just kind of watch a character be OP. I guess it's the dialogue exchanges outside of that, when he's like trying to like he's trying to like see other women that he's like collecting different women of different races.
He's like a Pokemon
he's
trainer.
trying to see them all naked, but his sister's also like his 9-year-old sister's also like naked next to them. So he's like trying to not see her naked, but she's also in love with him. Where I'm like, okay, this is a 4, but I like some of the scenes.
But yeah.
Apart from the main character and his sister, are there any other characters from the first episode who are recurring?
Yeah, so the girl that was like losing at cards, she's like the third main character basically, and they just kind of bully her. Like she's just their slave. They make her like take her clothes off a lot. That's
the
Jonathan, I've put us
That's
down
it.
as Reds for this show, but I'm starting to think I never want to watch it. Are you going to join me on that?
Yeah, I have no plans to see this.
I think the main reason I watched it is I thought it would be very funny to just drop on you that I've seen it.
Yeah, no.
I am
Yeah.
so
No,
shocked.
it is. It is really funny to watch that while taking shits.
So thanks for you've kept it secret from Ethan. It's like
Oh yeah, I was very careful to not log into my Netflix on the TV in case Ethan just saw I was halfway through the show. Yeah, I've tried to keep it secret. It's my shame.
it's your dirty secret. Yeah.
Like, oh god.
Yeah, it's
I
kind of
only watch it in
insane
a
that you
locked
did
room.
manage to keep it secret from me, but at the same time, it makes complete sense because I don't take shits with you, do I? I'm not there in the market, so it makes sense to
Thanks
be
for
able to get away with it.
clarifying. You don't.
Anyway, this was the twist ending to the Usual Suspects podcast. What are we gonna do for Animediate 10, Tony?
I don't know. I have no clue. Something. One Punch Man. One Punch Man, I think, is probably what we'll go with. Unless I think of something else.